This is HERkys Voice, a conversation with special Hawkeye guests focusing on the stories and people behind Hawkeye athletics. Now, here's the host of HERkys Voice, Iowa women's tennis coach, Sasha Schmid.
Welcome to HERkys Voice. I'm so thrilled and honored to be able to bring you a story this week that features our very own Jordan Amelon, a fifth-year senior on our University of Iowa women's golf team. Jordan is an Iowa City native, born to parents who are both alums of the University of Iowa. She grew up a huge Hawkeye fan. At 5 days old, she had her first surgery at the Stead Family Children's Hospital in Iowa City for a heart defect. Jordan would go on to have 3 additional heart surgeries and a brain surgery. With multiple follow-ups throughout her life, she is a continuing patient at the University of Iowa Children's Hospital. She, a competitive, focused, determined girl, grew up a huge Hawkeye fan and eventually found her way to the sport of golf. She was a late starter, but kept a dream alive to eventually play for the University of Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, pursuing her master's degree in sport and recreation management at the University of Iowa, her dream to compete for the Hawks has come true. I'm so proud of Jordan, and I loved this conversation, and I'm thrilled to be able to share it with you today. Take a listen to Jordan Amelon. Welcome to HERkys Voice. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by a women's golfer for the Hawkeye team, Jordan Amelon, a true Iowa City native who has made her way to the University of Iowa and our golf team for her final year of eligibility. And this is a story that I know well because Jordan is a family friend and a neighbor, and you are somebody that I've really wanted to be able to sit down and bring your story to our Hawkeye community because I just feel like this is so heartwarming and really goes to the heart of what makes the University of Iowa special and your story special. So, Jordan, welcome to HERkys Voice.
Yes, thank you for having me. Quite the honor.
Your mom is one of our most loyal HERkys Voice listeners.
Yeah, she is. She loves this podcast.
So I'm so excited to have you on here and feature you. You're a true Hawkeye. You grew up here, and your mom went to the University of Iowa and had a little bit of a time window when she was walking on the softball team. And she loves athletics, a real athlete herself, can play multiple sports. Tell me a little bit about your parents growing up in Iowa and being a Hawkeye fan.
Yeah, so I got really lucky. I have 2 amazing parents. I definitely grew up around sports a lot. Both my parents went to Iowa, probably gone to hundreds of different Iowa athletic events. And then we'd always, throw the ball around. I'd always be playing catch of some kind, whether it be football, softball, even tennis, whatever it was.
And you went to many Hawkeye games as a young child.
Yes, that was definitely a way my parents would bribe me to do things, so that was a main motivation of mine.
When you were born, you came into this world and immediately had some challenges. Talk a little bit about your early surgeries when you were a baby, and you were a long time, currently even probably go back for checkups, patient at the UI Children's Hospital.
Yeah, so I was born with a complex congenital heart defect. Basically, you have a membrane between your 2 ventricles, and mine never formed, so everyone has 2. I have a single ventricle. So what everybody else's heart does when it pumps, it goes to the body and then to the lungs. Mine just has to do that in 1 pump instead of 2. I believe it's something like that.
Yeah. And your first surgery was 5 days old?
Yeah, I was 5 days. I had 3 different ones. I call it the Fontan procedure. I think it was 5 days, about 6 months, and then a couple years later, I had the final one.
Wow. And you still go back to the Children's Hospital for regular checkups and visits now.
Yeah, I have a yearly checkup just to make sure everything's all good. So,
And everything's going well?
yes, to my knowledge.
So when are a young child and have had these complications from heart surgeries as a baby and a young infant, you also had this love of sports, but I'm sure it was difficult for you to be able to be physically active and feel like you were able to compete with sports that would require a lot of cardiovascular work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got really lucky. I had a mom who would protect me, but also kind of, if she can do it, go ahead. But there were definitely moments where all the kids, I loved basketball growing up. I wanted to play for the Iowa women's basketball team so bad. And I couldn't play basketball. I can like run up and down the court twice, and then I get tired, I get fatigued, I can't do it. So yeah, there were definitely moments where I'd sit in my room crying and like really sad about that. But I got really lucky just being around a community. Actually, a couple of the women's basketball players at one point wrote me a letter. I believe it was Morgan Johnson, Catherine Reynolds, and Nicole Smith. They all wrote me a letter, and it just really kind of changed how I thought about my life and my, what other people would call, quote, disability.
What did the letter say?
Morgan's was about how, you go through all this hardship, but that only makes you stronger, basically.
Yeah.
So that really helped me when I was 12 and sulking.
Yeah, because it was hard to be able to have to be on the sidelines.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing that I've heard about you when you were a child is you had this ability to just sit and watch entire Hawkeye football games, basketball games. Like your attention span was just locked in on sports.
Yeah, I definitely loved anything with the Hawkeyes, any sport, anything I would watch for sure.
I think knowing that you had that long attention span, I think that actually does suit somebody well for golf.
Yeah.
I mean, when did you find golf as a sport?
So actually it's kind of interesting. My grandpa especially, was big into golf. But I loved softball. I grew up playing travel ball softball. That was my sport. So I'd like hit balls into the cornfield or something, kind of typical Iowa, probably as young as like 5. And then when I got older, I tried out for the high school softball team, and I actually didn't make it. But the rest of my team did. The rest of my travel team did. So all of a sudden, I didn't have a team.
That's
to play on.
devastating.
Yeah, it was really hard at the time. But it ended up being like the best thing for me. So I didn't have a team to play on, so I had to find a different sport. So I found golf.
Funny how you can now know that that was actually the best thing that happened to you. And I love that perspective because you made it be the best thing because you ended up pivoting and making it be a positive.
Yeah.
So what age were you then when you picked up golf?
I mean, I probably I think we have pictures where I'm like 4 or something and have a club in my hand. But I didn't really start taking it seriously maybe until I was a sophomore or junior in high school.
Which is relatively late.
Yeah.
There's a lot to golf. There's so many shots to learn in golf. And then even if you get that down technically, there's an entire course management aspect to golf that takes a lot of competitive rounds. So you had, a lot of learning to squeeze into those high school years because I think you would have always had a goal of being able to continue to play a sport in college.
Yeah, for the longest time, my dream was, to play basketball for Iowa. Eventually, I kind of accepted that wasn't going to happen. So then I kind of pivoted to, I would love to be like an athletic director or something for Iowa. And I, with Title IX and stuff that we're talking about, I always dreamed of like filling up the state or the arena for women's basketball games. I thought that was like the coolest thing last year when that happened. But yeah, just I kind of pivoted to that, and then softball, I wanted to play for my high school softball team, and that didn't work out, so then I ended up on golf.
The other thing that happened to you in softball too, you ended up getting hit by a foul pitch and had a brain trauma.
Yeah, so we were warming up, and I was warming up one of our pitchers, and how you kind of warm up in softball is along the baselines. So the other team, I think, was doing like ground balls or something, and there was a wild throw, and I was not the brightest at the time and didn't have a helmet on as I was catching because I was like, confident in my catching ability. I wasn't going to get hit. Well, I didn't take into account the other team throwing, so I got hit in the side of the head, and that led to the brain surgery.
And how old were you when you had that?
I think that was 7th grade, so probably around 14.
Very scary.
Yeah.
And any sort of, what was that healing process like? Any sort of complications from that?
They told me a couple things, but I've never felt like it's been that big of a deal. I think the hardest thing, though, was I really, I still wanted to play softball. I still had that dream of playing for my high school softball team. And then I had to wear a helmet in the field for a while just to, like, protective measures. And I think, unfortunately, that was probably part of getting cut, like just the liability of having a kid with that history. So I think that was probably the hardest thing to accept on how it held me back.
Yeah, yeah. And when you started being able to move all of those attentions and energies to golf, what was it about golf that you loved?
I kind of just ended up with it more than anything. That was probably my 4th sport or something at that point.
That process of elimination, huh?
Yeah. There weren't many girls playing it, so I could be successful in my area without having much experience and, at the time, very much talent. So I think that was encouraging to have success early.
Yeah. And you became just a, reliable person that was on the range at Finkbine.
Yeah, I had a lot of things in my golf career that I wouldn't end up here without that. I met an amazing swing coach, going to my Division III school, meeting Mary Georgie, all amazing people who've helped me, get to the point where I am. And I think, feeling like, I was out there on the range, but, like, you can never sit there. I never sat there and was like, yeah, I work really hard. Like, there's always someone out there doing more than you, I think.
Yeah.
So if you just kind of realize that and, I can do more, I can get better.
Yeah.
Just kind of have that mindset. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you took it very seriously. I mean, you really put in the hours. I mean, I know that you have worked really, really hard on making sure that you make up for some lost time with your swing and with your the amount of practice hours you put on the course. When you're out there by yourself, it's a very lonely sport. There's so much solitude. I mean, what keeps you going? What motivates you at those moments when there's really no one else around and you're just out there walking 9 holes at Finkbine?
Yeah. I think for the longest time, it was just that dream of still playing for Iowa. I played 4 years at a different school, and, I had goals there. I wanted to win a conference championship there, and I wanted to have a great team there, and we were fortunate enough to win there. But in the back of my head, on those hard days, I still always wanted to play for Iowa. So I think just having that kind of almost obsession with that dream is kind of what kept me out there.
And did you see continual progress throughout your 4 years at St. Kate's? Like, did you see yourself making strides towards ultimately being able to have scores that could put you in a lineup at Iowa?
I mean, that's kind of hard because in the moment, you never see that. It's so up and down. One day you'll go out and have a good score, a good round, and then the next day you're still equally talented. It's just a couple things go differently, maybe a bad bounce, you miss a putt, suddenly you're 5 strokes higher, and that's a big difference. And so I think that was really hard, learning to be patient at that stage. And then, yes, over the years, I did see progress, but in the moment, I would always be like, oh my gosh, like, I need to do more. This isn't good enough. Like, so.
What's been the toughest thing for golf for you?
I'm not sure. I think just learning that patience, honestly, more than anything.
the patience to have a good score?
Yeah, the patience to not have your image of how your ability is based off one day and think that, oh, I'm not going to make it because I shot a 82 today, or, okay, I shot a 72. I have a chance now, just realizing you're still the same. Just keep working, and progressively you'll get better.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about how eventually this dream to come and be a Hawkeye develops.
Yeah. So I spent 4 years at St. Catherine University in St. Paul, Minnesota. I loved it there. That was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Met some of the most genuine people. Mary Georgie, the head coach there, I still, to this day, if there's anything I need, regardless of what it is, and I only get one call, that call is going to Mary. I'm so lucky to have her in my life for sure. And then I went down. We got a COVID year. And at the time, I was not allowed to play in the conference as a graduate student at St. Kate's. So I decided to go play Division I. I'd always dreamed of being a D1 athlete. So I emailed a couple schools. Only Southern Miss really got back to me, Southern Miss in Iowa. So I went down to Southern Mississippi. Loved it there. Another great coach, super lucky. But in the back of my head, I still had this dream of playing for Iowa. And honestly, the biggest thing for me was the Iowa athletic community had played such a big role in my life growing up that, I'd be a fool not to be able to be in that position and kind of give back to the community in that way.
So you made a decision that you only got one shot. I'm gonna email Megan Menzel.
Yeah, pretty much.
And how'd that go?
Yeah, that was a process. Mary from St. Kate's helped me a lot with that. Yeah, I a couple emails, phone calls, just seeing how I would fit in with the team, what I'd be able to contribute. And eventually, I ended up here.
So you found your way to the University of Iowa, and you started last spring in January of 2022. And talk a little bit about what it means to be here. I mean, it's kind of a little surreal probably because you and I have known each other for a while, and now you're friends with the players that are on my team because you interact with them as the student athletes all kind of get to know each other in different ways. And you are, among the facilities and within our community. And it's so fun seeing you inside the family, because I know you've loved cheering everybody on from being a huge fan, but you're in it right now. What has that been like for you?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think to a certain extent, it still hasn't really set in. I remember my first day, I had to turn in the compliance paperwork to Carver, and I'm running around trying to find, the right place to turn it into in Carver. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm not supposed to be down here. I don't play here. I'm not, this was always a privilege to be down here. And now I'm just walking around. It blew my mind for sure.
So you've got a great coaching staff. Tell me a little bit about the coaching staff and the progress you've made and what it's been like to start this season. And I want to hear a little bit about what it was like to be told you were in the starting lineup.
Yeah. So yeah, we have Megan Menzel as the head coach. She's great, has so much experience. She was with me basically the whole time I shot my career best round and really helping me there. Says all the right things, told me, the right shots to hit, just perfect. And a really, really caring coach. It's, I think sometimes kids really struggle to find a coach like that, and that's really special to have, and I'm really grateful to have that here. And then we have Allison Howarth as our assistant. I love her. She's fiery, wants to be great, young, up and coming, so definitely a great combination.
Yeah. And so when you qualified, walk me through that. Walk me through that process of qualifying and knowing that you were going to be able to go compete for the Hawks.
Yeah, so one cool thing about golf is there's no, to a certain extent, it's your scores are your scores. there's not so much of a coach being like, oh, well,
It's not subjective.
Yes, exactly. So basically it was just a couple rounds, low 5 scores go. So I knew I just had to be one of the top 5 scorers and I'd be able to play. So.
And how did it go? I mean, you knew that you had to hit a number and there's pressure in that.
Yeah, I have amazing teammates. They're very talented. They pushed me for sure. Going into that last round, it was very close, so I knew I needed to play well. And thankfully, I was able to play well, not be too nervous.
What'd you shoot?
I think I was 2 over that round.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
So you made the starting lineup, and what was the first event you played as a Hawkeye?
In New Mexico.
And I mean, how cool.
Yeah, it was, it's compared to where I began my career. To end up, playing a Division I tournament at a course like that, and I believe it was Amar Avery was right in front of me, who I don't know if you know the name or your listeners would know the name, but she has multiple documentaries on her. She'll probably end up playing professionally. Just very, very high-level golfer.
And you're like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I've watched her on TV, and now she's right in front of me, and I'm playing in the same tournament as her. So,
Jordan, that's so cool. So you've been steady and reliable on the course, and ended up going out and I think it was in your second event, shot an all-around career best 70.
Yeah, that was when I had Megan helping me out. So that was pretty exciting, pretty cool day.
And when you know that you've got a good ground going like that, what types of things are you thinking about and what's going through your head?
I really just wanted to help put up a good score that would help my team more than anything. We have some really great players. The rest of the players that were in the lineup that week were all underclassmen. And as a 6th year, I feel like I should be able to help, contribute. So I was just, trying to show up for them more than anything.
Having your experience and maturity with a young group is invaluable. Tell me a little bit about your teammates, maybe share some information about them. And I think it's really been so awesome for you to be able to bring leadership to this group.
Yeah, other than we have Leah on the team as well, who is a senior. She's an amazing leader as well. She's great. But other than her and I, the whole team's underclassmen. So it's a very young team, very exciting, I think, for the future. We have 4 freshmen who are very talented. They're very mature on the course as well, too. That's really impressive to see. And then we have Pau and Caroline as well as sophomores. So I think this is a team to watch in the future.
That's exciting. Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't just say, I definitely know someone who's very, very proud of you, and that is Jeff Schmid. And he's been working with you. When did you start working with Jeff?
I think probably around my junior or sophomore year of high school.
Yeah. And those were the times when you were really trying to just get that swing to be as advanced as it could possibly be.
Yeah, I for sure. I always tell people I won the lottery when he moved down a couple houses down from me. I would not be where I am today without him, for sure. He's a world-class swing instructor and a great player as well, and has been a great mentor for me outside of golf and just with life in general.
I think, Jeff loves somebody who loves golf as much as he does, and I think he's been able to find that in you because it's probably no greater gift than to have a student who takes what you teach them and then goes on the course and takes the responsibility to put the hours in and, work and work and work and work. And you and I both know he is what an advocate he is for you practicing on your own and putting the time in on your own. And you've been great to be the best student and absorb all of the knowledge that he really wants to give to you. And so incredibly proud to see you soar.
Yeah.
I think it's an incredible story because if you think about where you started as a baby at the Children's Hospital, and you think about the link between the Children's Hospital and the University of Iowa Athletic Department, you're one of those kids that could have very easily been in those windows waving during a football game and now competes for the Hawks.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think one thing I would say, if you have any listeners out there who have a disability or kids with a disability or anything like that, is the thing is, I think what really helped me is when I stopped looking at what other people were calling my, quote, disability as that, but rather, a strength, a sort of superpower. Um, and that really has helped me, you know, persevere through everything. I was not a talented golfer by any means. I started at the Division III level. There's a lot of great players there, make no mistake, but, I wasn't even in the starting lineup my freshman year for half the year. So just having that, personality where you get knocked down, but you get back up, you keep persevering. And I don't think I would have that without having gone through everything I did with my heart. And I think, one of my favorite stories about that is when I went to Southern Mississippi. I'm going through my physical, and we're going through my medical history, and the doctor turns to the medical student and goes, "Now, what do you think the odds are of a kid like this, with all this, being a Division I athlete?" And I don't even think he knew I started at the Division III level or anything like that. And he turns back to me and he goes, "Wow, congrats, this is amazing. You're here despite all of that." And in my head immediately, I was like, what is he talking about? I'm not here despite that. I'm here because of that. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't be here. There's no doubt in my mind without having gone through all that.
Jordan, I love that. I love that. What do you think? Can you talk a little bit more about how you would define that superpower?
I think, I wouldn't be here if I just gave up easy. You wouldn't make it through all the surgeries, all the rehab, whatever it is. And just persevering and, having to deal with, oh, I got cut from my softball team. Like, oh, I can't play this sport. Like, I got to go find something else. And just like constantly kind of getting knocked down, but having to pick yourself up and keep fighting. I think that is probably the most valuable thing, is just learning how to fight. And I think every kid who's gone through some sort of thing at that hospital has that same strength.
And your parents are so proud of you because they walked this journey with you as a child and gone through these medical hardships and gone through the highs and lows of your disappointments and setbacks. And they haven't missed a golf tournament in a long time. I know they want to absorb every shot you could possibly hit on the golf course, especially now as a Hawkeye. How cool to have them walking on the course with you as you represent Iowa.
Yeah, it's been a dream for sure. It's their alma mater. They're extremely proud. I think at the same time, though, they've done a great job in raising me, and they were never the parents who were super pushy, like, oh, you need to go practice, like, oh, you need to get better. Like, everything was all done on my own. It was up to me. Like, they'd be honest with me and be like, well, if you want to be good, if you want to be successful, you need to put in the work. But it was never forcing me to do that.
Wonderful. I know that they're like that, and all of you are very humble. So I am thrilled to be able to feature you on this podcast and tell your story to our Hawkeye community. It's incredibly special and goes to the heart of resiliency and what a lesson you can teach everybody about being resilient and picking yourself back up. And there's something really special when you can see the underdog achieve their dreams.
Yeah. Thank you.
I love it. So what is next for golf? So all of our Hawkeye listeners can continue to follow you and cheer you on.
Yeah, well, we just finished our last tournament of the fall season, but this team's going to keep pushing, going to keep getting better. We had a couple good tournaments with a couple good results. So we're just going to keep working hard, grinding, trying to get better. Just excited for the future here.
And be back in the spring.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I there is no doubt you will keep grinding and keep pushing, Jordan. I know that for sure. And I love that you are a Hawkeye, and I'm so proud of you and just so happy to know your wonderful family. So thank you so much for joining me today and wishing you all the best the rest of the way. As always, go Hawks.
Yes, thank you.
This has been HERkys Voice. The mission of the HERkys program is to help our Hawkeye community learn, support, and engage with Iowa women's athletics. To learn more about the HERkys initiative, visit herkys.hawkeyesports.com. Hawkeye fans, remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Once you become a Fight for Iowa podcast subscriber, you'll automatically receive the latest episodes of the Fight for Iowa podcast, the HERkys Voice podcast, Hawk Talk replays, exclusive game day content, and more. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Hawkeye Sports Network.